Good evening. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very special thank you. I believe that I believe that we are never more purposeful and more resourceful than when we find a cause that we believe in that is greater than ourselves, our doubts, and whatever gives us pause. CWS is about having conversations with people about their journeys and how are they using their gifts and talents to help others. How are they making positive contributions to humanity? I believe that each of us has a story to tell. And when we share our stories, to me, that's when we are best connected as human beings. And so I usually ask this question. Imagine a young person listening to you tell your stories and your successes. But more importantly, how you overcame some of your challenges. And imagine that young person one day becoming the head of state, becoming a person who stops a genocide, becoming someone who discovers a vaccine that saves millions of lives. And so I'm always encouraging people, when you have an idea, to pursue your idea, commit to it. Not so that when you become successful, you can bask in your glory, but so that that success becomes a beacon of light that illuminates the rest of us, that reminds the rest of us that we too can. So it is very important to ignore the chatter, to ignore the naysayers, and commit to your idea. What we are communicating here tonight, the medium through which we are communicating, is because someone had an idea. Of course, it's an amalgamation of many ideas, but the point I am making is that you never know what your idea is going to produce, or whose life, or how many lives will it save one day. The other thing I want to talk about is the importance of having a voice. Our guest tonight, Nykhor Paul, is an international model who's lending her voice to a very, very important cause, trying to bring awareness to stop the violence in South Sudan, her country, and to bring peace among the South Sudanese people. So tonight I am going to cut my introduction short because we have a packed show, and I really would like to have an in-depth conversation with Nykhor and find out who she is, why she's doing what she does. So I'll take a short break. We are back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. The lovely lady next to me is Nykhor Paul. Good evening, Nykhor.
Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for coming on to CWS.
Thank you for having me on CWS. I'm very grateful.
You were born in, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Akobo,
Akoba.
okay, South Sudan, and then migrated to Nebraska. Can you give us a glimpse of your early upbringing and introduce us to Nykhor at age 8, Nykhor at age 15, and who she became at 21?
Okay. So first of all, before I even got to Nebraska, we left South Sudan at a very small age to a refugee camp in Pinyaduk, Ethiopia. So I ended up living there for a while with my mother and my father, and then I got an opportunity to come with a family member to U.S. So that's how I ended up in Nebraska. So at 8 years old, I was still in the refugee camp, but at 9, I think 14 days before my birthday, we came here and we landed here in New York, and then the UN took us to Texas, which by then we figure out that, there are South Sudanese communities who have came here before us and that can help us at least adjust to this life, whether it was English or just even simply getting to know the food. So we moved to Nebraska to be rescued by our fellow South Sudanese, and that's how we ended up there.
What can you remember about when you first moved to Ethiopia? What was that like?
It was a little different because in South Sudan, in Akoba, I live in a nice village. It's a normal village, in a regular mud house, barefoot. I barely had any clothes, but that was the life that we had. But in coming to the refugee camp, it was a transition, but it wasn't that big of a transition because in South Sudan, the conditions there are literally just like the one in the refugee camp in Ethiopia. So. We had to settle down, register at the UN, register our family so each of us can receive food, and just start building. Start building the house, and start getting the family kind of like settle in, and just wait basically for the war to stop in South Sudan.
Here's a quote: "I am Nuer, but I'm not a tribe.
Yes.
I'm South Sudanese."
Yes.
Do you remember this statement, and why is it so important to make such a distinction?
It's very important because I feel as a South Sudanese woman, since we have immigrated here into the Western world, as much as we lived here for so many years, people never lost that tribe name, that way of being like we were back home, meaning I'm Nuer, I'm Dinka, I'm Bari, I'm Shuluk. That is like, those are the 64 tribes of South Sudan. But for me to capitalize on this is saying we are here in this vast world. We are here in America or Australia or in Europe from South Sudan. Nobody cares what tribe we are at all. Nobody ever came to me and of course people come up to me by the education we have given to other people about our tribe because they would never know. But people come up to me and asking me certain tribe names. So I had to really declare, I am Nuer, but I'm more than that. I'm more than just a tribe. I'm more than just a Nuer girl from Akoba. I am from South Sudan, so that I'm not distinguished from the rest of the people because I can't even see the difference between us. So to let the rest of the world know that little minuscule way of us to be in a tribalistic way is just like, to me, it's not right.
Briefly, can you tell us a little bit about the tribes and why violence among them raises its ugly head so often?
So in South Sudan, we do everything by tribe. We're very segregated by tribe. Even, smaller than the tribes, you go to sub-tribes because even within the Nuer, there's the Lol, there's the Gajag, there's, the Nasser, and, even with the Dinka, there's Dinka Boer, there's Tuik, so there's it breaks down into sub-tribes, but it's very important because that's our way of life. This is like how you look at here and you say the government kind of way of life. Like here in America, we have a government system. In South Sudan, we run that by tribe. So, the Nuer, like even now how the president, like, the majority is like the Dinka tribe. The president is from the Dinka tribe. The vice president is Nuer. So in our cultural ways, we really run a lot of our system based on tribes, based on leaders, this elder from this village, this elder from from this village. So it's really it's very close to our hearts actually to really represent your tribe. So
do you recall any special words of wisdom that you received from your mother that have shaped who you are today?
Well, my mother said a lot of things to me, and I think thanks to her I kept those, but she has managed to raise me through the telephone for the past 16 years, just really instilling her ways as a mother, even though we are far away. So when two things that my mother told me when I was, the day before we left, she said to me, Nykhor, I want you to know that the world you are going to is very unknown, and I don't even know what it is. You don't know what it is. But one thing you have to remember is that use your voice, because she knows from a very young age, I was always a very outspoken, shy, but very outspoken girl. But she said to me, people respect you by what come out of your mouth. So use your tongue wisely, but use it for good.
What do you miss?
like the way you speak, by speaking up, by saying the right things, because we come from a community where we don't have a voice. And so for me as a child, it was so difficult because I was always standing up to my uncles and my father and all these things, but it was not normal. So my mother would, put me in the corner and just say, you cannot do this, But when we found out I was coming here, she's like, you're out of my protection, you're out of my reach, but you have a tongue and you have a voice that I really feel could do something, but just use it wisely. So when she told me that, now I look at it and I'm like, oh, she was for a village lady. You really know what you are talking about.
She planted that
But
seed.
and then the second thing was, she put me on her lap and I sat there and she said, another thing for you. In our family members, you always were the one, oh, go with this aunt. She just had a baby. Go with this relative. She's sick. I was always the child from the firstborn of the 9 to always be taken off to stay with someone. So she said to me, when you leave, I'm not going to be around to protect you as your mother, but I will pray for you that you will meet women along the path of your journey that will be your mother. And she said to me, a mother is not because they birth you. A mother is somebody that can feel what I feel for you, that can have love and a protection and understanding for you as a woman. So she said, you're going to have so many mothers in your life, but treat them as you would treat me and respect them as you would respect me. So those I always keep with me.
What do you miss most about her?
Everything. My mother was my best friend. She is on the phone, and even when we see each other, even when I left, she gave me a lot of hope because she never abandoned us. And there was times when she could have, as a woman, and considering the culture that we come from, there was a lot of things that I saw as a child where I was just like, leave, but she stayed around, and even today, still cheering us on, still constantly. She's very, very wise, but the wisdom that she always teaches is very calming, but is so full of love and is so full of peace and is so full of this oneness that I now speak about is the things that I learned from my mother.
When you are in front of an audience, pushing your cause, do you feel her presence? Do you channel her?
Yes, I do. I speak with her before, mostly if I can get a chance with her, I talk about what I'm doing, and she just prayed to me, what has came on to you is a present that was given to you by God, because that's what we want as human beings, is to speak up for each other, is to care for one another, is if somebody is being done wrong or somebody is dying or starving, you're able to speak for them. That's love. So when I speak with my mother, she's always telling me this. So I feel it when I speak up for what's going on in South Sudan, or for us to have a voice, or for us to have an education in our country, or for all of these things. I feel her because in a way I'm living through her. Because if she was growing up in a culture where she had a lot of rights and she had education, I believe she would be doing what I'm doing, because the kind of love that she has for everyone. I believe the turnout would be this if she was in a place to do so. So I do feel her.
What does it feel like to be featured on many famous magazines, and how do you believe that exposure helps you in your role as an activist?
Well, it's a great feeling because I've been waiting and I've been working very hard to reach that platform, to have those magazines publish or believe in my look, or me as an artist. So any job that I get, I constantly I feel this overwhelmed joy, because when you work hard for something but you believe it, that if this only moved this way, there's a bigger goal. So in me having these covers and walking the runways and doing these jobs, that was creating the platform, which is now me sitting here and saying that I want to have a voice. I want to give a voice to the voiceless women from my country. So it's definitely a good platform. But
you came from Sudan, Ethiopia, then Nebraska, America, where there is a demarcation, there is a black and white issue, there is racism. At what did you ever question your beauty?